The dust on Talon 4 never settled. It hung in the air like a red fog, making every breath taste like metal. Quan walked the perimeter of forward base Echo, his rifle ready but his mind wandering. The war had been going on for 3 years now. 3 long years of fighting the Vraxi, an alien race that humanity barely understood. Quan was a combat medic. He fixed broken soldiers and sent them back into battle. Sometimes he wondered if that made him a good person, or just part of the machine that kept the killing going. His boots crunched on the rocky ground as he checked the sensor posts. Everything seemed quiet. Then he heard it. A small sound, almost like crying. Quan stopped and listened. The sound came again, weak and scared. It was coming from the old mining area, the part that collapsed during last week's battle. He should call it in. He should wait for backup. But the sound was so small, so frightened. Quan moved toward the ruins. His helmet camera was broken from yesterday's fight, the lens cracked and dark. No one would see what he was about to do. He climbed over twisted metal and broken rocks until he found the source of the crying. It was a Vraxi child. Quan froze. The small alien was trapped under a fallen beam, its 4 arms scratching weakly at the metal. Blue blood pooled around its body. The child looked up at him with 6 eyes, all of them wide with terror. It tried to move away, whimpering in fear. Every part of Quan's training told him to walk away. The Vraxi were the enemy. They had killed thousands of humans. His own father died in the Battle of Proxima Station, killed by Vraxi weapons. This child would grow up to be a soldier, another enemy to fight. But it was just a child. Quan's radio crackled. "Medic Tay, report your position." It was Sergeant Day, his squad leader. Quan looked at the trapped child. It had stopped crying, just watching him with those alien eyes, waiting to see if he would kill it. "I'm checking the mining ruins," Quan said into his radio. "Thought I heard something." "Don't waste time on ghosts," Day replied. "Get back to base." "Copy that," Quan said. He turned off his radio. The child made a small sound, like a question. Quan knelt down beside it, moving slowly so he wouldn't scare it more. He examined the beam trapping its lower body. Heavy, but he could lift it if he was careful. The real problem was the injuries. The child was losing blood fast. Quan opened his medical kit. He had supplies for human injuries, not alien ones. But blood was blood, and broken bones were broken bones. The basics should work. He pulled out a trauma bandage and reached for the child. It tried to bite him. Quan pulled his hand back just in time. "Easy," he said softly. "I'm trying to help you." The child probably didn't understand his words, but maybe it would understand his tone. He'd learned that animals could tell when you meant them no harm. Maybe aliens could too. He tried again, moving even slower. This time the child let him touch it. Its skin felt smooth and cool, like river stones. Quan worked quickly, wrapping the worst wounds and applying pressure to stop the bleeding. The child whimpered but didn't fight him. That's when he heard the growling. Quan looked up and saw them. 3 Vornskers, the local predators. They looked like dogs mixed with lizards, all teeth and claws. They had smelled the blood. They wanted an easy meal. The Vornskers circled closer. Quan stood up, putting himself between them and the child. He switched his rifle to non-lethal rounds. He didn't want to attract attention with gunfire, but he would if he had to. The first Vornsker lunged. Quan fired, hitting it with a stun round. The creature yelped and fell back. The other 2 attacked together, one from each side. Quan hit the left one, but the right one got past him. It went straight for the trapped child. Without thinking, Quan threw himself over the small alien. He felt teeth sink into his shoulder, felt claws rake across his back. The pain was bright and sharp. He twisted and fired point blank, finally driving the Vornsker away. The third one decided this meal wasn't worth the fight and ran off. Quan lay there for a moment, breathing hard. His shoulder was bleeding badly. The pain made his vision blur. Beneath him, the child made a worried sound. It reached up with one small hand and touched his face, gentle and curious. "I'm okay," Quan said, even though he wasn't sure if that was true. He forced himself to stand. He had to get the child out from under that beam. With his good arm, he lifted the metal, gritting his teeth against the pain. The child pulled itself free and immediately collapsed. Quan gave it water from his canteen. He finished bandaging its wounds properly. He even sang to it, old songs his mother used to sing to him when he was scared. Korean lullabies about the moon and stars. The child seemed to calm down, its eyes half closing. In the distance, Quan heard the sound of engines, Vraxi ships, probably looking for survivors from the evacuation. He grabbed a flare from his kit and fired it into the red sky. Then he picked up his rifle and moved away, hiding behind a large rock. The Vraxi ship landed near the child. Soldiers emerged, weapons ready. They found the child and quickly carried it to safety. Quan watched them go, feeling strange. He had just saved an enemy. He had risked his life for something that might one day kill humans. But when he closed his eyes, he saw those 6 eyes looking up at him in fear. He saw a child who needed help, and he knew no matter what happened next, he had made the right choice. Quan waited until the Vraxi ship left. Then he started the long walk back to base. His shoulder hurt badly. His back was on fire. He would need to explain the injuries somehow. He would need to lie. When he reached the base, Sergeant Day was waiting for him. One look at Quan's torn uniform and the sergeant's face went hard. "What happened out there?" "Vornsker attack," Quan said. It wasn't entirely a lie. Day looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Get to medical. Have them fix you up." Quan thought that was the end of it. He thought he had gotten away with his choice. But 3 days later, he was called to the command center. The base commander was there, along with 2 military police officers. On the screen behind them was satellite footage. Blurry, but clear enough. It showed Quan at the mining ruins. It showed him helping something small. It showed him defending it. The commander's voice was cold. "Combat medic Quan Tai, you are under arrest for treason against humanity. You gave aid to an enemy combatant during wartime. Do you deny this charge?" Quan stood straight despite his injuries. He thought about lying. He thought about all the ways he could try to explain. But in the end, he just told the truth. "No, sir, I do not deny it. I saved a child." "That child was Vraxi," the commander said. "That child needed help," Quan replied. The military police moved forward and put restraints on his wrists. As they led him away, Quan wondered if the child had survived. He wondered if anyone out there in the stars knew what he had done. He wondered if it mattered. He didn't know that someone was watching, someone who would change everything. A Vraxi mother who had just gotten her daughter back and wanted to know everything about the human who had saved her. Hana stood on the bridge of her warship, staring at the empty space where Talon 4 used to be visible. Her hands gripped the command console so hard her knuckles turned white. Her daughter was gone. Nari was missing. Every second that passed felt like a knife in her heart. "Commander, we need to continue the offensive," her second officer said carefully. Jin knew better than most how dangerous Hana was when she was angry. He had served with her for 10 years. He had never seen her like this. "My daughter is down there," Hana said, her voice quiet. The quiet was worse than shouting. "My child is alone on that moon, and you want me to think about strategy." "The evacuation transports confirmed she made it off the surface," Jin tried to reassure her. "She's probably on one of the other ships." "Then why hasn't anyone found her?" Hana's voice cracked. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. Commanders did not break down. Mothers did not have that luxury in wartime. Check again. Check every ship in the fleet. While they searched, Hana made a decision that would haunt her later. She ordered an attack on the nearest human colony. If they had her daughter, if they had hurt her child, she would make them pay. She would burn their worlds until she got Nari back. The attack was brutal, quick, efficient. Hana felt nothing as she watched the colony's defenses fall. She felt nothing until Jin touched her arm. "Commander, we found her." Hana spun around. "Where?" "A rescue team picked her up an hour ago. She's alive, injured, but alive." Jin hesitated. "There's something else, something you need to see." They played the footage in Hana's private quarters. She watched her daughter, her precious Nari, trapped under metal. She watched and felt her heart stop. Then a figure appeared on the screen, a human soldier. Hana expected to see the human hurt her child. She expected violence, but instead the human knelt down. He opened a medical kit. He began treating Nari's wounds with careful, gentle hands. "What is he doing?" Hana whispered. The footage continued. Creatures attacked. The human could have run. He could have saved himself. Instead, he threw his own body over Nari, taking injuries meant for her. He fought off the predators. He kept her safe. Then the human did something Hana didn't understand. He sang. She couldn't hear the words through the footage, but she could see Nari's reaction. Her daughter, who had been terrified, began to calm. The human sang to her like Hana herself would have done. "Who is he?" Hana asked. "We don't know yet," Jin said. "But there's more. The humans know about this too. They arrested him." "Arrested him? Why?" "For helping Nari. They're calling it treason." Hana watched the footage again, and again, and again. She watched a human risk everything to save an enemy child. She watched him take wounds that would scar him forever. She watched him show more mercy than she herself had just shown to that colony. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She had just attacked humans in anger, hurting innocents because she was scared for her daughter. But this human, this one soldier, had saved her daughter when he could have left her to die. What did that make her? What did that make him? "Find out everything about this human," Hana ordered. "I want to know his name. I want to know his story. I want to know who he is." It took 2 days. 2 days of searching through human communications and databases. Finally, Jin brought her the information. "His name is Quan Tai. He's 28 years old, combat medic, no family except his mother and younger brother. His father died in the Battle of Proxima Station." "We killed his father," Hana said slowly. "We killed his father, and he still saved my daughter. There's more. He's going to be executed. The humans have scheduled a trial, but it's just for show. They've already decided he's guilty." Hana felt something she hadn't felt in years. Shame. This human had saved her child. He had shown mercy when mercy was impossible, and now his own people would kill him for it. She thought about Nari, who was recovering in the medical bay. Her daughter kept asking about the gentle human and the singing man. Nari didn't understand why the human wasn't there anymore. She wanted to thank him. "Commander, what are you thinking?" Jin asked nervously. "I'm thinking about honor," Hana said. "In our culture, what is the highest debt?" "A life debt. When someone saves your child, you owe them everything." "Exactly." Hana stood up. "This human saved Nari. Under our laws, I owe him a life debt. Under his laws, he committed treason. Which law is right?" "Ours," Jin said immediately. "Maybe. Or maybe both. Or maybe neither." Hana walked to the window looking out at the stars. "Do you know what I saw in that footage? I saw someone who put life above war. I saw someone who saw a child and didn't see an enemy. I saw someone braver than any soldier I've ever commanded. You want to help him. I have to help him. Honor demands it. But more than that." Hana turned back to Jin. "What if we're wrong? What if humans aren't the monsters we think they are? What if they're just like us, trying to protect their families?" "That's a dangerous thought, Commander." I know, but I can't unsee what I saw. I can't forget that a human bled for my daughter when I wasn't there to protect her. Hana made her decision. Prepare a shuttle. I'm going to human space. Jin's eyes went wide. That's insane. They'll arrest you. They'll execute you. Maybe, but I have to try. I have to speak for this human the way he couldn't speak for himself. Hana smiled sadly. Besides, I owe him a life debt. I can't repay that if I hide behind my fleet. The Council will never approve this. Then I'll do it without approval. I'm going to that trial, Jin. I'm going to tell them what their soldier did. And if they still want to execute him, they'll have to explain to a Vraxi mother why mercy is treason. Preparations took 3 days. 3 days of arguments with her superiors. 3 days of watching Nari recover. 3 days of watching that footage over and over, trying to understand the human who had changed everything. On the morning of departure, Nari asked to come with her. It's too dangerous, Hana said, stroking her daughter's head. But I want to see him again, Nari said. I want to tell him thank you. Hana looked at her daughter's earnest face. You really want to thank him? Yes. He was nice to me when I was scared. He made the pain stop, and his singing was pretty. That decided it. Then you'll come with me. The humans need to see you. They need to see who they're punishing their soldier for saving. The shuttle launched 2 days later. Hana sent a message ahead, one that shocked both civilizations. A Vraxi fleet commander was requesting permission to testify at a human trial. She was coming to speak for a soldier who had saved her child. As they traveled through space, Hana thought about what she would say. How did you explain to people that their enemy had honor? How did you tell them that the war they were fighting might be wrong? She didn't have all the answers, but she had the footage, she had her daughter, and she had a debt to repay. When they reached the neutral station where the trial would be held, Hana saw the crowds waiting. Humans with angry faces, soldiers who wanted revenge. Media from both sides, eager to see what would happen. She took Nari's hand and stepped off the shuttle. Every human eye turned to stare at them. Hana stood tall, letting them look. Let them see a mother and child. Let them see the Vraxi as something other than monsters. Somewhere in that station, a human named Quan waited for his trial. He probably didn't know she was coming. He probably thought he would die alone. But Hana was here now, and she would make sure everyone knew what he had done. She would make sure his mercy was not forgotten, even if it meant standing alone against both their civilizations. The courtroom was packed. Quan sat at the defendant's table wearing a plain gray uniform instead of his military clothes. They had taken away his rank. They had taken away everything except his name. Beside him sat Yuna, his lawyer, and one of his few remaining friends. She looked worried. This is bad, Yuna whispered. The prosecutor has 3 admirals testifying against you. They want to make an example of you. Quan nodded. He had accepted his fate days ago. He would be found guilty. He would probably be executed. That was fine. He had made his choice. He only wished he knew if the child had survived. The judge entered and everyone stood. Judge Park was old, with hard eyes that had seen too many wars. He looked at Quan like he was looking at a traitor. Maybe he was. The trial began. The prosecutor stood up, a woman named Commander Lee. She was good at her job. She painted Quan as a traitor who had betrayed humanity. She showed the satellite footage, pointing out every moment Quan had helped the Vraxi child. This man had a choice, Lee said, pointing at Quan. He could have followed orders. He could have left the enemy alien and returned to base. Instead, he chose to give medical aid to something that would grow up to kill humans. He chose wrong. Yuna stood to defend him. Quan Tai is a medic. His oath says he must help those who are injured, regardless of who they are. He saw a child in pain and he did what he was trained to do. That's not treason. That's humanity. It's treason, Lee shot back. We are at war. There is no room for mercy when the enemy wants us dead. The arguments went back and forth. Witnesses testified. Sergeant Day took the stand and said Quan had disobeyed direct orders. Other soldiers talked about friends who had died fighting the Vraxi. The mood in the courtroom grew darker. Then the judge spoke. I understand a Vraxi commander has requested to testify. Is this true? Yuna stood quickly. Yes, Your Honor. Commander Hana has traveled here to speak about what happened. The courtroom erupted in angry shouts. People yelled that they didn't want to hear from the enemy. Security guards had to restore order. Judge Park looked annoyed. This is highly unusual, he said, but I'll allow it. Bring in the witness. The doors opened. Hana walked in, holding Nari's hand. The courtroom went silent. It was one thing to talk about the Vraxi as monsters. It was another thing to see a mother and child walking in. They looked almost normal, almost human. Hana was tall, with smooth gray skin and 6 eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore simple clothes, not a military uniform. Nari stayed close to her mother, looking around with wide, curious eyes. Quan stared at them. That was the child he had saved. She was alive. She was healthy. Relief flooded through him so strong it almost hurt. Hana was sworn in using a Vraxi oath. She stood in the witness box, looking calm despite the hostile crowd. The translator device around her neck would turn her words into human language. Yuna approached her carefully. Commander Hana, can you tell us what happened on Talon 4? My daughter was left behind during an evacuation, Hana said. Her voice through the translator was clear and strong. I didn't know if she was alive or dead. For hours I searched. I was ready to destroy everything to find her. What did you do? Hana looked ashamed. I ordered an attack on a human colony. I hurt innocent people because I was afraid for my child. I'm not proud of what I did. The courtroom stirred. An enemy commander was admitting to war crimes right in front of them. But Yuna kept going. What happened next? My rescue teams found Nari. She was injured but alive. And when I asked how she survived, they showed me footage. Hana looked directly at Quan. They showed me your soldier. Yuna played the footage on the courtroom screens. Everyone watched as Quan found Nari. They watched him decide to help. They watched him treat her wounds. They watched him defend her from predators, taking injuries that would scar him forever. What did you think when you saw this? Yuna asked. I didn't understand at first, Hana said. You humans were our enemies. We were taught that you had no honor, no mercy. But here was a human risking his life for my daughter, a human who could have left her to die, a human who sang to her to keep her calm. He sang to her. Old songs. We couldn't understand the words, but Nari understood the feeling. Comfort, safety, love. Hana's voice grew softer. He treated her the way I would have. He protected her the way any parent would. Yuna let that sink in. Commander Hana, I need to ask you something difficult. Did you know that Quan's father was killed by Vraxi forces? The courtroom went very quiet. I learned this, yes, Hana said. And yet he still saved your daughter. What does that tell you? Hana was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her words carried through the silent room. It tells me that he's a better person than I am. I let anger drive me to hurt innocents. He let mercy drive him to save a child, even when that child belonged to the people who killed his father. She turned to address the judge directly. In Vraxi culture, we have something called a life debt. When someone saves your child, you owe them everything. Your life, your honor, your loyalty. This human saved my daughter. Under my laws, I owe him a debt I can never fully repay. But under our laws, he committed treason, Lee interrupted. Then your laws are wrong, Hana said simply. The courtroom exploded again. Judge Park had to call for order. Lee stood up, angry now. You come here to defend someone who betrayed his species. You expect us to believe you? You're the enemy. I am the enemy, Hana agreed. But I'm also a mother, and I'm also someone who knows honor when I see it. She looked at the jury. Your soldier had a choice. He could have chosen hate. His father was killed by my people. He had every reason to leave Nari to die. But he didn't. He chose mercy instead. She pointed to the footage, frozen on the moment Quan was shielding Nari with his body. Look at that image. Really look at it. That is a human protecting a Vraxi child. That is someone who sees past war to what matters. Life, innocence, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Nari suddenly spoke up, her small voice carrying through the translator. Can I talk? Judge Park looked surprised but nodded. The witness's daughter may speak. Nari stepped forward, still holding her mother's hand. She looked at Quan. I remember you. You were nice. You made the pain stop. You sang pretty songs. Quan felt tears in his eyes but didn't let them fall. I was scared, Nari continued. The metal was heavy and it hurt. Then you came. I thought you would hurt me more. But you didn't. You were gentle. You gave me water. You stayed with me even when the animals came. She looked at the judge. Is he in trouble because of me? Because he helped me? No one knew what to say to that. How did you explain to a child that mercy was complicated? Yuna seized the moment. Your Honor, this is what we're really talking about. Not strategy, not war. A child who needed help and a medic who gave it. Should we punish that? Lee tried to recover. The law is clear. Giving aid to the enemy during wartime is treason. Even if that enemy is a child, Yuna shot back. Even if helping them is the right thing to do? The arguments continued, but the mood had shifted. The jury looked uncomfortable. The crowd was divided now instead of uniformly angry, seeing Nari had changed something. Finally, Judge Park called for closing arguments. Lee gave hers, emphasizing duty and law. Yuna gave hers, emphasizing humanity and mercy. Then the jury left to deliberate. They came back 3 hours later. Quan stood to hear the verdict. On the charge of treason, we find the defendant not guilty. Relief flooded through Quan. Yuna grabbed his arm, smiling, but the judge wasn't done. However, on the charge of disobeying direct orders, we find the defendant guilty. The relief died. Quan stood straight, waiting for his sentence. Quan Te, you are hereby dishonorably discharged from military service. You are stripped of all rank and benefits. You will serve 2 years in military prison. Before Yuna could object, Hana stood up. Your Honor, I have a request. What is it? Release him into my custody. I will take responsibility for him. If he is harmed while under my protection, you may take my life in exchange. The courtroom erupted again. Lee looked furious. You want to give a human soldier to the enemy? I want to honor a debt, Hana said calmly, and perhaps show that enemies can become something else if we choose. Judge Park looked at Quan. Do you accept this arrangement? Quan looked at Hana and Nari. He looked at the future being offered to him. A future where maybe, just maybe, something good could come from all this pain. Yes, he said. I accept. Quan said goodbye to his family through a video call. His mother Sora cried quietly, trying to be strong. His younger brother Chan looked angry and scared at the same time. You don't have to do this, Sora said. You can stay here, serve your time in prison. At least you'd be on human worlds. Mom, this is a chance for something better, Quan said. Maybe I can help both sides understand each other. Or maybe they'll kill you, Chan said bitterly. They're the enemy, Quan. Don't forget that. They're people, Quan corrected gently. Just like us. I've seen it. The call ended with tears and promises to stay in touch. Quan gathered his few belongings and met Hana at the docking bay. She stood with Nari and Jin, waiting for him. "Are you ready?" Hana asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Quan replied. The journey to Vraxi space took 5 days. Quan spent most of that time in a small cabin, trying not to think about how he was the only human on a ship full of former enemies. The crew avoided him, watching him with suspicious eyes. He didn't blame them. He was just as strange to them as they were to him. On the 3rd day, Nari knocked on his door. She peeked inside, curious. "Can I come in?" "Of course," Quan said, grateful for any friendly face. Nari sat on the floor, looking up at him with her 6 eyes. "My mother says you saved my life. Thank you." "You're welcome. I'm glad you're okay. Does your shoulder still hurt?" "I remember the animal bit you." Quan touched the scar. "Sometimes, but it's fine. Scars remind us of important things." "What does that scar remind you of?" "That helping someone is always worth the cost." Nari thought about that. Then she pulled out a small device and began teaching Quan basic Vraxi words. He was a terrible student, but she was patient. By dinner time, he could say hello, thank you, and please in her language. The friendship between Quan and Nari made the crew more comfortable around him. If their commander's daughter trusted the human, maybe he wasn't so dangerous after all. Slowly, the Vraxi soldiers began to talk to him, share meals with him, tell him about their families. Quan learned that the Vraxi weren't so different from humans. They loved their children. They missed home during long deployments. They told jokes and complained about officers. They were just people trying to survive a war nobody really wanted. On the 5th day, the ship's alarms blared. Everyone rushed to battle stations. Quan found Hana on the bridge, staring at the communication screen. "What's happening?" he asked. "Distress signal. A colony under attack. Both human and Vraxi civilians live there." "Pirates?" "Yes. They don't care who they hurt." Hana looked torn. "We should help. But if we engage, my superiors will question why I'm protecting humans." Quan thought about the children on that colony. Human children. Vraxi children. All of them scared and in danger. "If you don't help, people will die," he said. "Isn't that more important than politics?" Hana looked at him, then at her crew. "He's right. Prepare for combat. We're going in." The battle was quick, but brutal. The pirates had superior weapons, but Hana's crew had better training. Quan found himself in the medical bay, treating both Vraxi and human wounded. He worked alongside Vraxi medics, and together they saved lives. One human survivor, a woman named Bo-Ra, stared at Quan in shock. "You're human! Why are you on a Vraxi ship?" "It's a long story," Quan said as he bandaged her arm. "But we're all just trying to help each other right now." News of the rescue spread fast. Images of Quan working alongside Vraxi medics went viral across both civilizations. People saw a human and Vraxi saving lives together. They saw cooperation instead of war. Some people were inspired. Others were furious. 2 days later, someone tried to kill them. Quan was in his cabin when he heard the explosion. Alarms screamed through the ship. He ran to the bridge and found chaos. Someone had planted a bomb. Smoke filled the corridors. Crew members were injured. "It was one of our own," Jin said, his face grim. "One of the crew didn't believe in what we're doing. He tried to kill you and the commander." "Where's Hana? Where's Nari?" "Safe, but we have a problem." Jin pulled up a communication. "This attack wasn't random. There are people on both sides who don't want peace. They profit from the war. Weapons manufacturers, military contractors, politicians who gain power from fear." Quan felt cold. "They'll try again." "Yes, and they won't stop until we're dead." Hana appeared, holding Nari close. "We need to expose them. Show everyone what they're doing." "How?" Quan asked. "By doing what we've been doing. Working together. Saving lives. showing both our people that we're stronger together than apart. Hana looked determined. But we need help. We need humans and Vraxi who believe in peace. They started building a network. Yuna helped from the human side, finding soldiers who were tired of fighting. Jin recruited Vraxi who wanted something better for their children. Slowly, they gathered allies. But the enemy was gathering too. Quan discovered files showing a conspiracy. Military leaders on both sides had been prolonging the war deliberately. They sabotaged peace talks. They created incidents to keep hatred alive. They made billions while ordinary people died. "We need to present this to both governments," Yuna said over a secure channel. "This is proof that we've been manipulated." "They won't believe us without more evidence," Hana said. "We need something undeniable." That's when they got an unexpected message. A human general named Park wanted to meet with them. In secret, on Talon 4, where everything started. "It's a trap," Jin said immediately. "Maybe," Hana agreed, "but maybe it's also an opportunity." Quan looked at the message. Something felt wrong about it, but they needed allies in high places. "We should go," but carefully. They spent 2 weeks preparing, gathering more evidence, building support, making plans for if things went wrong. Quan trained with Vraxi soldiers, learning to fight alongside them. Hana met with human diplomats in secret, building bridges. During quiet moments, Quan and Hana talked about their hopes for the future. They talked about their losses in the war. Hana told him about her mate, killed in the early days of fighting. Quan told her about his father and how he had wanted to be a doctor before the war. "Do you think we can actually do this?" Quan asked one night. "End a war that's been going on for years?" "I don't know," Hana said honestly. "But I know we have to try. For Nari, for your brother Chan. For all the children on both sides who deserve to grow up without fear. What if we fail? Then we fail trying to do the right thing. That's better than succeeding at doing the wrong thing." The day came to go to Talon 4. They took a small team, Quan, Hana, Jin, Yuna, and a handful of trusted soldiers from both species. As they approached the moon, Quan felt a strange sense of coming full circle. This was where he had saved Nari. This was where everything changed. They landed near the old mining facility. General Park was waiting with his own team. He was an older man with tired eyes and a hard face. "I didn't think you'd actually come," Park said. "We want peace," Hana said. "If you're genuine, so are we." "I am genuine. I'm tired of this war, tired of sending young soldiers to die for nothing." Park pulled out a data chip. "This contains communications between the real conspirators, names, dates, proof that both our governments have been lying to us." Quan reached for the chip, but before he could take it, gunfire erupted. Park fell, shot by his own men. Soldiers emerged from hiding, surrounding them. These weren't peace seekers. They were the conspirators, and they had used Park as bait. A human officer stepped forward, smiling coldly. "Did you really think we'd let you ruin everything? This war makes us rich, makes us powerful, and you want to end it? Not happening." Quan and his team were forced into the old mining facility, the same place where he had saved Nari. Now it might be the place where they all died. But as the conspirators prepared to execute them, something unexpected happened. Both human and Vraxi forces appeared on the horizon. Regular soldiers who had heard about the trap, soldiers who believed in peace. They had come to save the people trying to end the war. The battle for the future was about to begin. The mining facility shook as explosions rocked the ground outside. Quan pressed his back against the metal wall, hands bound behind him. Beside him, Hana struggled against her restraints. The conspirators had them trapped, but the rescue forces were getting closer. "They won't reach you in time," the human officer said. His name was Commander Rowe, and he looked pleased with himself. "By the time your friends break through, you'll all be dead. The war will continue, and everyone will think you died as traitors trying to defect to the other side. They'll know the truth, Yuna said, from where she sat tied to a support beam. We sent copies of everything to trusted people. You can't hide this. We'll see about that. Ro raised his weapon, aiming at Quan. Any last words, traitor? Before Quan could answer, the roof exploded inward. Soldiers dropped through the hole, a mix of human and Vraxi forces. They moved as one unit, covering each other perfectly. At the front was Sergeant Day, Quan's old squad leader. Stand down, Day ordered, his rifle trained on Ro. You're surrounded. The fighting was brief but intense. The conspirators were outnumbered and outflanked. Within minutes, it was over. Ro and his team were in custody. Quan felt someone cutting his bonds. He turned to see Day. Sergeant? It's just Day now. I retired yesterday. Day helped Quan stand. I couldn't sit back and let them kill you. Not after I realized you were right all along. More soldiers poured in, securing the facility. Quan saw something that made his heart lift. Human and Vraxi soldiers working together, trusting each other with their lives. This was what it could be like. What it should be like. But they weren't safe yet. Hana's communicator buzzed. Her face went pale as she listened. The conspirators have launched a last attack, she said. They're hitting the peace conference on Station Unity. They're going to kill everyone there, all the diplomats from both sides who were working toward peace. How long do we have? Jin asked. 20 minutes. Maybe less. Quan looked at the mixed group of soldiers around him. Can we get there in time? Not all of us, Day said, but a small team in a fast ship might make it. They ran for the landing pad. Quan, Hana, Day, Jin, Yuna, and 6 other volunteers. They piled into the fastest ship and launched, pushing the engines beyond safe limits. Nari stayed behind with the other soldiers, safe but scared for her mother. The trip took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of watching the clock and hoping they weren't too late. When they arrived at Station Unity, they could see the attack ships already docking. The conspirators were boarding the station. We need a plan, Jin said. We split up, Hana decided. Half of us evacuate the diplomats, half of us stop the attackers. I'll lead the evacuation team, Yuna said. Quan, you're with me. You're a medic, not a fighter. No, Quan said firmly. I'm going with Hana. She needs someone watching her back. Hana looked at him surprised. You'd fight beside me? I saved your daughter. Might as well save you too. They split into teams and entered the station. Alarms were blaring. People were panicking. The conspirators had already started their attack, targeting the main conference hall where the peace talks were happening. Quan's team moved fast, clearing corridors and taking down attackers. He stayed close to Hana, covering her blind spots the way she covered his. They moved like they'd been fighting together for years instead of weeks. They reached the conference hall to find it barricaded from the inside. The diplomats had locked themselves in, but the conspirators were planting explosives to breach the doors. Stop them, Hana ordered. The fight was brutal. The conspirators were well-trained and desperate. They knew if they failed, everything they had worked for would be exposed. Quan took a bullet to the leg but kept moving. Day went down but got back up. Jin took out 3 attackers before being wounded. Finally, they subdued the last conspirator. The explosives were disabled. The doors opened and frightened diplomats emerged, grateful to be alive. But the conspirators had one last surprise. One of them had escaped and was heading for the station's power core. If he detonated it, the entire station would be destroyed. I'll go, Quan said, already limping toward the core. Not alone you won't, Hana said, following him. They ran through damaged corridors, following the lone conspirator. They found him in the power core room, hands on the detonator. It was the Vraxi officer who had planted the bomb on Hana's ship, the one who had tried to kill them before. Stay back, he warned. I'll blow us all up."
"Why?" Hana asked. "Why would you destroy everything?" "Because peace is weakness. Because our people need enemies to stay strong. Because without war, what are we?"
"We're people who get to live," Quan said. "We're parents who get to watch our children grow up. We're soldiers who get to come home." Pretty words from a traitor. I'm not a traitor. I'm just someone who chose life over death. Quan took a step forward. "You can choose that too. Put down the detonator. And spend my life in prison? No thanks." "Better than being dead," Hana said. "And maybe in time, you'll understand why we did this." The conspirator's hand trembled on the detonator. For a moment, Quan thought he would do it, thought they would all die here. But then Day appeared behind the conspirator and knocked him out with one precise strike. "Couldn't let you have all the glory," Day said with a tired smile. The crisis was over. The conspirators were all captured. The evidence was secured and broadcast to both civilizations. The truth came out, the lies were exposed, and for the first time in years, people on both sides began to question if the war was really necessary. 3 months later, the peace accords were signed on Talon 4, on the exact spot where Quan had first saved Nari. Leaders from both civilizations stood together, signing documents that would end the war. Quan stood in the crowd with his family. His mother held his hand, tears streaming down her face. Chan stood tall, wearing a uniform. He had joined the new joint service, humans and Vraxi working together. "I'm proud of you," Sora said. "Your father would be proud too." Hana gave a speech, talking about how one act of mercy had changed everything. How a human medic had shown her that the enemy was just people like her. How his courage had given her the courage to seek peace. When she finished, she called Quan to the stage. He limped up, still recovering from his injuries. "This human saved my daughter," Hana said. "In doing so, he saved all of us. He showed us that mercy is not weakness, that compassion is not surrender, that choosing life over death is the bravest thing anyone can do." She presented him with a medal, both human and Vraxi symbols combined. "You are a nest friend to my people, and a hero to both our civilizations." The crowd cheered, humans and Vraxi together, applauding the medic who had started it all. Later, at the celebration, Quan found himself surrounded by people wanting to thank him, but he slipped away, needing a moment of quiet. He walked to the memorial they had built, a statue showing a human and a Vraxi protecting a child between them. Nari found him there. She was older now, almost a teenager. She wanted to be a medic, inspired by the human who had saved her. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Helping me? You lost so much." "I gained more," Quan said. "I helped end a war. I made friends with people I thought were enemies. I learned that doing the right thing is always worth the cost." "What if you had to choose again? Would you still save me?" Quan looked at her, then at the statue, then at the celebration where humans and Vraxi laughed together. "Every single time," he said. "Some choices are easy. They might have hard consequences, but the choice itself is simple. You were a child who needed help. Nothing else mattered. I'm glad you saved me." "Me too." 5 years passed. The joint humanitarian corps that Quan and Hana founded grew to thousands of members. The peace held, though there were always those who wanted to return to war. But every time tensions rose, someone would point to Talon 4. Point to the story of a medic who chose mercy. Quan taught at the Joint Academy, training new medics from both species. He taught them that medicine had no borders, that life had no species, that their job was to heal, not to judge who deserved healing. Hana served on the Unified Council, working to strengthen the peace every day. She and Quan remained close friends, bound by that moment in the dust of Talon 4 when everything changed. On the 5th anniversary of the peace, they returned to the memorial together. Nari came too, now a medic herself. So did Chan, and Sora, and Jin, and Yuna, and Day. All the people who had been part of the story. "Do you think it will last?" Yuna asked, looking at the humans and Vraxi working together on the colony below. "I think we'll have to keep choosing it," Hana said. "Peace isn't something that just happens. It's something you build every day." "Like medicine," Quan added. "You treat the wound, but then you have to keep caring for it while it heals. Peace needs the same care." They stood together in silence, watching the sunset over Talon 4. The red dust glowed like fire in the fading light. It was beautiful in a harsh way, this moon that had seen so much pain, but now represented hope. Quan thought about that day 5 years ago. The scared child trapped under metal, the choice he made, the ripples that spread from that one moment of mercy. He had saved one life and changed millions. "Thank you," Nari said quietly, "for everything." "Thank you for letting me save you," Quan replied. They walked back to the celebration together. This group of humans and Vraxi who had once been enemies, who had learned to be friends, who had chosen peace over war, life over death, hope over hate. And on Talon 4, where it all began, children of both species played together in the dust, not knowing there had ever been a war, not knowing that a human medic had once defied orders to save a child, just knowing that humans and Vraxi were friends now. That was the world Quan had fought for, a world where mercy mattered more than orders, where compassion mattered more than conflict, where one person's choice to help someone in need could change everything. It was a good world, worth every sacrifice, worth every scar. And as the stars came out above Talon 4, Quan knew his father would have approved. Because in the end, he had done what any good doctor does. He had seen someone suffering and made it stop. Everything else just followed from that simple, human act of kindness.